Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Phillip W. Dunn, Program Manager with the U.S. Black Chamber Inc. On behalf of our President, Ron Busby, our board, and our staff, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this recording of U.S. Black Chamber's webinar. Now, the title of today's discussion is Small Business Digital Ready, which is Verizon's Accelerator program, which helps to move small businesses forward. Verizon is launching a small business accelerator in September 2021, focusing on Black and Latinx small businesses. Now, today we will hear all about this new program called Small Business Digital Ready, and our guests will share critical information and resources as small businesses embark on the road to recover after facing extreme economic challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Small businesses are an anchor for the U.S. economy, and they employ over 60 million people, or more than 47% of the private workforce in 2017. Now, the pandemic had a devastating effect on small businesses and the workers that they employ. For instance, 41% of Black-owned businesses closed their doors due to the pandemic, which is more than double the rate of white-owned businesses. Now, 8 out of 10 Black business owners reported feeling financially vulnerable even after receiving federal relief funds. So how will small businesses navigate the road to recovery? What resources are available to them? Our guests today are Verizon's partners in the Accelerator program, and they are LISC and NextStreet. We'll hear from Karleen Porcena of LISC and Jason Johnson of NextStreet, who will tell us about the program and share how business owners who are watching today can utilize these resources. We'll also try to address the most pressing concerns for small businesses for the rest of 2021 and going into 2022. We'll also work to empower small businesses and their employees with resources to aid in this recovery. So before we jump into this discussion, let's take a look at a video introducing the program.
Economy with access to personalized learning plans that help you stay ahead in the online marketplace, coaching from experts, and networking opportunities with diverse businesses in your industry. It's all part of our plan to leave no small business behind. Register at verizon.com/smallbusinessdigitalready.
All right. And we're back. That was a great introductory video. And now we're ready to introduce our panelists who will tell us more about the program today. Karleen Porcena of LISC, I'd like to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thanks so much. Thank you all for having me here today. My name is Karleen Porcena, and I work on the LISC National Economic Development Team. I'm excited to talk about so many of the pressing issues that are targeting Black businesses today. For those of you who don't know, LISC stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation, and we are one of the largest community development organizations in the country. We work in 38 different cities, as well as rural communities across the country, from programs that span from housing, health, safety, jobs, and of course, economic development and small business. So our model is essentially to pull together public and private resources and tools to support our local partners and people in underinvested communities. The work that I specifically focus on is small business development, building out our small business strategy, different toolkits, partners, capital, and any additional resources that's needed in order to help small businesses thrive. And then in addition to that, focusing on the infrastructure on the ground and the support that the organizations who are working directly with small businesses, what type of resources and support that they need. And then just on a personal interest, I'm really excited to be on this call. As growing up as an immigrant of, both of my parents were immigrants. And I think when you grow up with, in different networks, there's this very strong mentality of that side hustle and being able to really have that culture of entrepreneurship. And that spirit of entrepreneurship is very much alive within our communities. So to be able to work on this project has been really such a great honor.
Thank you, Karleen. And again, I extend a great welcome to have you here. And next, we'll turn our attention to Jason Johnson. Jason, can you tell us a little bit about your background and the work that you do at NextStreet?
It all started on a cold December day in 1980. No, I'm playing. Jason William Johnson. I'm the director of the Small Business Network at NextStreet. NextStreet is a professional service firm that mobilizes capital, capabilities, and customers to better support systemically left behind businesses. We've serviced about 10 million small businesses indirectly through our various, consulting engagements, relationships and projects that we've worked on across the country. To date, we've done 25 ecosystem assessments, across the United States. So with those ecosystem assessments, we basically go into a market, connect with the local, key stakeholders, the governmental officials, and try to get a deep understanding of what, some of the challenges for that ecosystem is and what some of those opportunities are. And to better, and then to help, these leaders in these communities create a playbook to better, support their ecosystems. We have three, practice areas. We have our capital practice, which kind of helps with, investing in small businesses, helping CDFIs, fundraise, helping, connect small businesses with capital providers, and helping impact investors send their investment to small businesses. We also have our advisory practice, which is our consulting arm that kind of helps with these organizations and our different partners with strategy. And then we have our programs practice, which will support small businesses directly in New York City. We have two small business solution centers in Lower Manhattan and in Queens. And then I'm the director of our small business network, which is the new line of business that we've launched, which we utilize, digital technology, a social network to connect ecosystem, professionals locally and nationally, to help, share best practices, to be able to share resources, and just to kind of automate and scale the ability for small business service professionals to connect with one another. Prior to joining Next Street, I was the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Chicago Urban League, served as the director for that center for 4 years. And I also had a technology startup called Convo, an app that used personality compatibility to help people break the ice at networking events. I'm also an adjunct professor, do a whole bunch of things. I got several side hustles, so I'll just leave it right there.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that introduction. And I do see the commonality here. Both of your organizations are doing great things, and both of you personally have a vested interest in small business. So thank you both. I want to jump into the panel discussion with a couple of questions that I pulled together. And, I'm thinking, primarily about the state of small business right now. And I wonder, and I'll toss this out to both of you, but I wonder if you can tell me what you're seeing as the current state of small business, especially minority and women-owned businesses.
Ladies first.
Thanks. So, businesses are still very much struggling. They're very much in recovery mode. We know the statistics, I think you shared during the introduction, about how many Black businesses have actually closed during this pandemic. And then, of course, when you're looking at certain industries, some have recovered more quickly than others, and some have honestly not recovered at all. And I think that there are certain industries that have particular measures that are making it a little bit more challenging to fully open up. So you're thinking about, gym facilities and childcare. They have all of these new policies and regulations that small businesses are now having to, thinking about restructuring their business, but learning all of these new practices. So it's going to take a considerable amount of time and resources and dedication to really focus on getting them back and better to where they should be. People also haven't returned to their offices full time. Many small businesses are also really struggling with their own workforce, keeping strong employees on board. I know especially the restaurant industry in particular is struggling with having strong staff. People haven't figured out their childcare situations in their own homes personally, which make it even more challenging to run your own business. I think a lot of the times we think about businesses as the structure and don't realize that there are actual people behind them. So if the people are not, financially secure or stable, then a lot of the times the businesses are also, having those same challenges. We ended up doing a survey at LISC. We had about a little over 5,000 businesses complete them, and 2/3 of them had responded saying that they actually really would welcome some additional technical assistance. Many of those same businesses also shared that they had actually not received any government grant funding. So the amount of resources that are actually out there are still not trickling down to many of the businesses that need it the most. So although there's a plethora of resources, this project that we're working on in particular is really looking at the businesses that haven't already accessed many of the resources that are out there, and thinking about creating programs and tools that have the flexibility of really meeting businesses where they are is going to be key in what's next.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Karleen.
Jason, I'll toss that same question over to you. Thank you so much, Karleen.
Yeah, that was a great summation. I agree with almost everything that Karleen has said. She talked about a variety of different things, the challenges with, keeping the workforce, especially when you had the unemployment benefit that was going on with some businesses where some employees are actually making more staying at home than actually going to work. That's a way to motivate people to go to work, right? So that was a challenge right there. Even now, I think what the pandemic has done, it's kind of changed, workers' expectations as far as what they expect from work, right? There's a lot of advantages from working from home. So a lot of business owners, if they're not able to provide, that, level of flexibility, there's a lot of jobs that's available right now. Anybody who wants a job probably can get one at this point. So there's a lot of competition for talent in that regard. So business owners are almost, kind of stuck in a pickle trying to make the most convenient, environment for employees as possible. So that's definitely a challenge right there. A lot of, like you stated, a lot of business owners are still struggling. The restaurant industry, oftentimes when there's indoor mandates where people have to wear masks or there's capacity limits, that's going to impact restaurant industry first. That's going to impact, your gyms. That's going to impact, retail in a lot of different respects. So, those are some of the challenges they're still facing. But another thing on the flip side, to be an optimist, is that new business applications, according to the US Census, are at an all-time high. I wish I could show you the chart. It's spiking. A lot of people are launching businesses. And the reason being is, because whenever there's new problems, there's new solutions that can be created to solve those new problems. And that's where, that's how enterprises are born. A business is simply the ability to solve a problem and exchange and provide value in exchange for, currency. So you're seeing a lot of people coming up with new business ideas, a lot of people launching new businesses because new problems exist or new top opportunities that exist that didn't exist prior to the pandemic. An example I like to use is Versus. Everybody watches Versus now, but if, Versus would have never thrived prior to the pandemic. I'm gonna sit at home and watch, my Instagram and this, that, whatever. I'm gonna go outside and play, or I'm gonna go to the park, or I'm gonna go to a restaurant. But in that period of time when we were all just confined to our homes, we couldn't go to clubs or venues or parties or things like that. Versus gave everybody that sense of community. And I also want to shout out, D Nice also with the club quarantine as well, right? So that's just an example of new problems being solved by new opportunities. Now everybody watches Versus now. So there is opportunity for growth whenever there's a crisis or a pandemic, or there's a pandemic every 100 years. I'm saying that it happens every 6 months. But whenever there's a crisis or things like that, I think Allstate Insurance was founded during the Great Depression. So pretty much on the flip side of it, there is a lot of new business growth, a lot of new opportunities presenting themselves. And I think a lot of new industries. I think when we look back at the pandemic, for those that survive it, we're going to look back and be oh, this was a massive, seed that was planted for a lot of new industries being born, a lot of growth and things like that.
Thank you both for painting a picture of the current environment. And I'm also thinking too about, our existing businesses that struggled, and then the new businesses that started in this environment. And so they're both in a class by themselves, but they're both in the same boat. And so when I think about them both, or these two classes of businesses and business owners, what support do these businesses need most during this time?
So I'll say it hasn't really changed what business owners need. I think it's just been exacerbated by the pandemic. So I know Kaufman did a study in 2016 where they identified some of the key challenges for minority-owned businesses, and they identified the 3 M's: money, markets, and management knowledge. as some of the key core issues. Management knowledge, getting access to mentors, access to business education, they can better run their business, access to money, access to capital, credit, all of those different things, and then access to new markets as far as new customers, being able to, leverage their networks to get access to new, customers and things like that. I know Rising Tide uses the framework of social capital, where they say, human capital is a core need, which is basically equivalent of management knowledge. Social capital, which is the equivalent of markets, and then, financial capital, right? So you see those three types of things when you look at academic studies, when you look at frameworks, those three challenges, really popping up, regardless of how you look at small businesses, particularly, minority owned businesses. I think more than anything else, the pandemic has exacerbated the need for management knowledge more so than any of the other two. Obviously, access for capital and need for capital is, it has grown as well. But what you've seen is, what are business owners doing with these grants, right? Once they receive them, what are they doing with these loans, what they receive them? That's when management knowledge kicks in, right? And that's been the thing that's really been needed more than anything else. Because really, I'm gonna be honest, from the work I was doing at the Urban League, the businesses that survived was the ones who kind of understood their business, understood the pain points of the market, understood how to manage their, their staffing pattern, understood how to manage their resources, all of those different things, leadership and task management skills. Those are the ones that thrive, where some of the business owners, even if they got an infusion of capital like a PPP or things like that, if they didn't have core management knowledge, they was back in the same situation a couple months later. So, I think management knowledge is what's been exacerbated the most, and that's the biggest need they have right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, as someone who's went to business school, they always kind of cram in your head that planning component. I think what happened during the pandemic was that businesses were forced to actually work on their business instead of focusing in their business. And that was probably the biggest distinction. Businesses don't have time to think about, what's my future 6-month plan. They're worried about today, right now, the customer that's in their space, especially the businesses that we're working with, the businesses of color, many of them who own, service-oriented businesses, restaurants where you're really interacting with people. You don't have the same kind of opportunities to sit down and really think strategically about how to make the technology decisions that make your business more efficient, or how do you really think about hiring the best individual employees, and which skill sets in particular are going to help you drive to where it is that you need to go. So I couldn't agree more with the planning component of, the importance of being able to weather the storm financially. A lot of businesses are not driving, are not running on any kind of financial cushion. And you saw with a lot of the uses of these grants, it was payroll, right? Like they were worried about paying their employees, and they were worried about paying past due bills. And that's because so many businesses didn't have that 3-6 month cushion. A lot of that kind of ties back into that knowledge management, that planning, thinking through challenges, being able to weather the storm, disaster planning and things like that. I definitely think that capital is a huge component, but once you have the funding, you have to be able to use it in the right way. So not having, whether it's financial advisors or someone that can help you make those key decisions is going to always be a challenge.
No, thank you. I think you're both spot on. And when I think about some of what you just said, I think about some of the creativity and some of the innovation that came out of COVID. And so I wonder if you all could talk just a little bit more about how COVID changed the business model for many of the small businesses that are still around today, and some of the new ones that have started.
I guess you want to go, Karleen, or you want me to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I think one of the things that we found is that 93% of businesses are more reliant on technology now than they were prior to the pandemic, right? So that's like a huge thing right now. So the digital component is big, because a lot of business owners, especially those who had their business model severely disrupted due to the fact that them having a primarily in-person business model, have had to figure out ways to how to utilize technology to, achieve the same goals or to solve new problems, right? So I think, the reliance on digital has been a really, really big, shift as far as, people, being able to stay in business and things like that. I think another thing, the way the pandemic has impacted people become more creative, because I always say, I always give the advice, don't say I can't, say how can I? Because how can I starts the creative process. So the pandemic had everybody saying, how can I, right? So pretty much, I think that spurred a lot of creativity. I've seen clients who were traditionally brick and mortar figure out how to get their, their products, their food, their food products and things like that into grocery stores and things like that. I've actually seen a lot of businesses grow, during this process, just because they've had to think, to be creative. And then once things kind of opened up, it went from just being like their temporary revenue stream to, once they were able to like kind of operate in their traditional business model, being a permanent additional revenue stream, right? So pretty much, I've seen a lot of creativity. I've seen, more reliance on technology. And those are some of the things that I've seen as far as how the pandemic has impacted businesses.
One thing that I wanted to also mention, because I think I forget which company you had mentioned skyrocketed during this time, Jason, earlier, but you did see a lot of the businesses using the DoorDashes of the world and the Uber Eats and all of those kind of food delivery services that they might have not used in the past. But there's also a cost associated with that, right? It's not just, okay, let's get on Uber Eats, but really sitting and planning and figuring out, okay, do my prices now change? What are the margins that I need to think about, and all of that? So not so much focused on the creativity, but how do you make it more efficient? I guess I could still be considered creative. Businesses that were just cash businesses, that's not going to work anymore. That's very, very clear. Businesses that weren't online, that's not going to work anymore. That's been made abundantly clear. So really, again, that focused on digital, that focus on being prepared for this type of disaster in the future, I think is at the forefront of many of the businesses that we've seen and that we've worked with. And one thing that is interesting to think about is that the businesses that have survived and that have been successful through this are not necessarily the best businesses, right? They're the ones who've actually had the cash on hand. They've been able to weather the storm. They've been smart with their decisions. And to really think again about what are the operating mechanisms that you need to have put in place in order to continue to function if times do get hard moving forward. And then I think around employees, and we talked a little bit about this, but small businesses are thinking differently about how to really incentivize a lot of employees. People are being super flexible with benefits and flexible with, changing part-time in the office, part-time at home. So I think you're going to see a lot more flexibility around the hiring policies because people are eager to get good folks at their businesses. And I think the best is yet to come, especially with businesses within our communities. I mean, we're some of the most innovative and entrepreneurial mindset of people. And I think, our community in general has always kind of done work, has been supplementing their income in some ways in the past by doing some kind of side hustle or doing some kind of, skill on the side. And right now people are really able to take that time to grow those interests. So I'm very confident that we'll see a ton of new businesses in the next year or so.
And let's further expand on that because, I'm thinking about how businesses changed. They had to evolve. They had to become more reliant on technology. At the same time, we had the pandemic. We also had racial unrest going on, in particular targeted at our community. And so when I think about all of this coming together, I'm thinking about the impact on Black businesses in particular. Tell us some of the good and the bad of the last 18 to 24 months, the impact on Black businesses in particular. And I know I mentioned the 41% statistic at the beginning, 41% of Black-owned businesses closed their doors during the pandemic. Tell us what else is going on during the pandemic with Black-owned businesses. Jason.
I know from on the ground, perspective. I had several business owners like when we talk about the social unrest and everything, that were vandalized, where they had to, close their doors temporarily, some of them permanently. I know a couple had to end up switching locations just because, once the vandalization happened in their particular community, then the insurance rates go up, obviously, right? And then other things go up and things become more expensive. Maybe once they reopen, they kind of gotta, catch back up, and repairs and challenges, right? So and the pain of because a lot of these business owners that I was working with when I was at the Urban League were like community pillars, people who gave people jobs, hired returning citizens, donated to, organizations and things like that. And just on the personal level, just to kind of see the pain that they felt, and then kind of the ambiguity and the dissonance that they felt regarding their community, the community that they champion, a community that they, really worked hard to support, and to see this happen to them, by people, the type of people that they're trying to help. I've seen a lot of, business owners wrestle with that whole, dynamic, because most of our business owners, Black business owners, are about their community. Like they always try to find a way to, engage with their community, support their community, give people second opportunities and things like that. Pretty much, so just to kind of see that on the personal level, on the get really, really granular was really, really, heart-wrenching and challenging. In that regards, obviously at the macro level, obviously, you have a lot of the people that we hire, are lower to no skill. And then, with the unemployment benefits being what they were, being able to, people were staying home. It was a hard time keeping people in jobs due to the fact that everybody's hiring. Then it was just hard, even if a person stayed in the workforce, it was hard to keep them there because they had so many other opportunities. And all of the other business owners are trying to up their game, because it's a battle for talent that I don't think we've seen with small businesses, at this scale and at this level, at this point in time. So, I think we talked about a lot of the macro issues, but then there's some of those micro things that, I touched on that, everyday business owners are going through, wrestling with, and things like that.
I would definitely agree with that. When you look at the type of businesses that were most, impacted, the percentages of them are typically the businesses that we see Black businesses having the highest ownership rates of. So that in and of itself is a huge challenge. A lot of the businesses, in particular the retail, that have such kind of local grown pride, and people associate neighborhoods with a local restaurant or that craft store or whatever it is. Local businesses really make the essence of local communities. So I think in more of a way that impacted really the kind of vibrancy of local communities, that was a huge challenge. Not even thinking about the lives of so many people that have been taken away. So many of these businesses had to wrestle with, should we even keep our doors open? That with in and of itself has been a really hard challenge. Now having conversations around entrepreneurship and mental health, that was something that wasn't common before. And we hear it so often now because of what we're dealing with. You think about legacy businesses and family-owned businesses that had to be closed down after years of being in your family. It's gut-wrenching, to think that after all this time, there's no other option. What I've seen is what I've seen that is very common to our communities is pulling together ways of working together. And I've seen, small business loan funds that local restaurants are putting together. Churches have put together, local drives to support small businesses. There's been so much support for the small business space within the Black community in particular. I think that's been something that's been really refreshing to see. And then I almost wonder if some of the innovation that we might see, in the future will be potentially businesses merging together. I wonder if we'll see some of those trends happening. And then one of the more kind of technical things that I think people really saw as a major barrier was that so many small businesses didn't have strong relationships with their banks. This is something that is not new to us. Many, not just businesses, but our community in particular, don't have good relationships with financial institutions. But when it came to the pandemic in particular, it was especially difficult because this was the main way that people were accessing PPP loans. And without that relationship, it made it so difficult for businesses to access those funds. And we saw that within some of the surveys that we've done, that people still hadn't accessed funds that were available to them because they didn't know they could access them. They didn't have a banker that they could call. They were put on a wait list. There were so many things that were barriers to our businesses getting loans or getting support or getting funding. And you saw these kind of networks of small businesses working together to help each other out.
Yeah. And I will say round two went a lot better than round one. Round one, we were completely left out, but round two, it did get better, as far as, some of the specifications that they made, as far as, focusing on, businesses with 20 or less employees, prioritizing them. Shameless plug, shout out to Michael Roth, our managing partner at Next Street, who was leading the SBA, during round two of, PPP. Some of those changes definitely made a difference. But like you stated, like due to the fact that we have challenging relationships with our banks, makes it real difficult. I'm gonna share, and just to piggyback on that, I remember we were doing a small business fund in the city of Chicago. And, we had to advocate at the Chicago Urban League to allow people who have Cash App and, Chime and some of these non-traditional banks to be able to receive their funding through there. And, the city, shout out to Kenya Mayer, who's the chief small business officer with the city of Chicago. She listened and she made those adjustments to ensure that our businesses were able to get, that grant funding. Because originally that was a stipulation. You had to have a bank account, but they made the adjustment and they made the allowance to allow some of these businesses who had, Chime, Cash App, Venmo, to be able to receive their money that way. So, like you said, we use a lot of non-traditional, financial solutions. So that made things a challenge as well.
Very, very important points that you both made. And before I go to the next question, I just kind of want to add to that, and that is the corporate American community stepped up, and many of them made it their part of their purpose, part of their mission to help Black-owned businesses. And so when I think about what Verizon is doing right now with this accelerator program is one of those impacts that we'll see. And then also when you combine that to the galvanizing effect that I think what Karleen just described, I do think that we're going to see some very positive impacts in the future for Black businesses and our community. So with that said, I want to go into the accelerator program. And Karleen, I'm going to start with you. I want you to tell us a little bit about how LISC is partnering with Verizon to launch a new resource platform to support diverse and underrepresented small businesses.
Sure. So I am super excited about this program. I feel like we've been working on it for so many months and it's finally launched and it's here. And we had an amazing launch week, which has really kind of given us that boost of energy that I think all of us were hoping for. But part of our value at LISC is that we operate in 38 different markets across the country. And those organizations each have their own strong networks. A big part of what we preach at LISC is the importance of ecosystem building and the infrastructure to actually deploy some of these programs. Because you could create the best product, the best program, but if you don't have those ambassadors on the ground that are actually reaching the businesses that need it the most, then a lot of them go underutilized. So our strategy has really been to focus on our local offices. We have 35 champions that we're working with across the country that we call them BDOs, business development organizations. And these are the organizations that work directly with small businesses. Many times they are the kind of one-stop shops. They function as financial advisors, they function as business consultants. Some of them are accelerator programs. Some of them function as therapists for many of these small businesses. Mm-hmm. But Verizon has allowed us to build this program really with our BDO partners mindset to get insight from them around how would this program really function in the best format for small businesses. So we're working directly with our local offices, with our BDO partners to make sure that our engagement strategy is very inclusive. We have 9 market launch events that are going to be starting in October, where each market is going to be having their own unique way of sharing this resource to their communities. I think that's an important part of how we're going to be distinguishing this product. It's not going to look the same in certain areas because, there's different needs depending on where you are. We're also able to kind of loop in our rural teams, which is really, really huge. I can't emphasize the importance of digital tools for our rural communities as well. So making sure that this program is developed in a way that both our local partners on the ground feel comfortable using it, but that they're the ones who are sharing it. And it's not like Verizon has a new tool, but it's actually being utilized through our partners for the businesses that need it the most.
Thank you so much for sharing that from LISC perspective. And now, Jason, I want to turn to you. I want you to tell us how Next Street is partnering with Verizon to launch a new resource platform to support diverse and underrepresented businesses.
Absolutely. So we're working with Verizon in a couple of different ways. So pretty much we're working on the national partnership strategy in coordination with LISC, who's working on the local partnership strategy. So we're partnering with national chambers of commerce such as USBC, your AW, Association of Women's Business Centers, your national urban leagues, your US Hispanic chambers, all of those different national organizations to help get the word out. Pretty much we're working with some of their local offices in some of our priority markets. So at launch right now we have 8 priority markets: Atlanta, Boston, Houston, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. So there'll actually be on the ground activations in partnership with LISC's local champions on the ground in those particular markets. And then pretty much, our national partners will be spreading the word, not just to those local markets, but also, to their national networks as well. So all of their chambers of commerce, all of their local offices, all of their affiliate offices, they'll be, helping spread the word in that regards. Other ways that we've worked with Verizon, on the platform, we designed the curriculum and we helped recruit the subject matter experts with the emphasis on representation, making sure that subject matter experts were Black and brown folks, who, the people that we're trying to target for this platform can see themselves in, because we all know that representation matters. We worked with LISC as we were developing the curriculum. They developed an advisory board, with some BDO, partners that they have. We're able to provide insight and to give guidance on the platform and the curriculum, what they like, what they didn't like, et cetera, et cetera. That feedback was taken into account to create the final, version of the curriculum. So we like to say that this is a small business platform created by small businesses, to better support small businesses, as they try to grow and they scale. And then overall, we're also working with Verizon on the overall go-to-market strategy, which the local partnerships and the national partnerships are part of. So, we're, working with influencers, and a variety of other different folks and entities to help get the word out about the platform. So those are all of the different ways that Next Street is working, with Verizon to bring this thing to life.
That's perfect. Now, I'm thinking about, both of these programs, this one program and both of these organizations working together with Verizon. I wonder if you could tell me specifically why this program is needed at this moment.
Well, I think we talked about the digital readiness concerns, right? And everything that, like most of the courses on this platform, even though we are covering finance, even though we are covering operations, even though we're covering customer acquisition, a lot of it's from the lens of digital readiness, leveraging digital technology and tools to, better, better operate, to, get more customers and to, improve, to manage their finances more effectively. So like coming from that whole lens of digital readiness, I feel like this platform is we launched this thing at the perfect time, just to kind of help business owners get through, this next phase, because now nobody knew when we were building this that the Delta variant was about to happen, right? And we don't know what other variant is going to happen. They probably have every fraternity and sorority, version of a variant by the time everything rolls around, right? But, hopefully a platform like this helps business owners, with the road ahead, giving them skills, giving them knowledge, giving them access to, content that's on demand that they can use to better help themselves and to connect them with coaches. There's a variety of other different aspects to this platform, Ask the Expert events, one-on-one reviews where they work with a business mentor to help them, build out, a piece of their business. There's a variety of different solutions on this platform and more on the roadmap that as, we navigate this pandemic and we kind of put this behind us and we move forward, that this will be a tool here, for 10 plus years, that will allow business owners to be able to grow and to still be able to prosper.
I think one of the most exciting parts of this program is that it really was designed with small businesses all throughout its kind of inception. And it's delivered in a way that doesn't make you feel like you're in class or you're in school or you're being talked to. It's delivered by small businesses that are really sharing their own personal experiences, their own journeys, and that it's delivered in a way that's like tips and tools, almost like storytelling. So it really resonates with the small businesses that are tuning in. I also think that through the first couple of months when we were doing a lot of the design work, we had focus groups with the business development organizations. We had focus groups with many small businesses that gave us a lot of helpful information and where we were able to use all that insight to really kind of perfect the product that we have now, whether it was based on the user experience or what curriculum we should focus on. And also the importance of having an online community and being able to connect with other small businesses. The content, the content is short modules. Like I said, it's not this kind of long 3-4 hour discussion where you kind of lose interest. Every curriculum has an activity, has a template, has a case study. You can always go to an area where you can learn more. Jason talked about the expert conversations. And I think, we had this one small business that was in our small business group who was a pediatrician. She was brilliant. I mean, pediatrician, you go to medical school, you have to take all these exams. She was brilliant, but she didn't have the communication skills or the pricing knowledge. I mean, you don't talk about any of that in medical school. So this is someone who wanted to start her own practice, but had very limited skill sets in what she was extremely well at. So what this, what this program is able to do is help people think about those other functional skill sets that are really needed in having a small business outside of what is it you're good at. Now let's think about the money behind it. Let's think about the people power behind it. Let's think about the other kind of, again, functional areas that you'll need in one location. So you're not going to 12 different organizations to get information. It's really all there consolidated for you, whether it's in your hand, on your computer, on the go. That flexibility is really key.
Perfect, right. And I like that concept of having a one-stop shop to come in and to really take your business to the next level. So thank you both for sharing a little bit more about the importance of this program. And I want to share just a couple of videos on the program overall, and then we're going to move into some organization-specific questions for each one of you. So I'm just going to share just a couple of these videos that we got from our friends at Verizon, so that you all can get a chance to see what the Small Business Digital Ready website looks like and some of the activities that you can find there. So give us one moment.
At this point in time, it could be possible for any business to work remotely. As a small business owner, it's really important to think about all the options of work, and remote work is certainly one of them. It's an amazing way to think about how you want to spend your resources, both time and money, and it can offer increased flexibility for your employees, which we know right now is paramount. It is taking all of the tenets of good management and just amping them up.
Now, that first video was how to build remote work into your business. Our next video that we're going to watch is on how to build and maintain good credit.
Having healthy credit is like having GPS. It will take you where you need to go. It will help you expand your business options, protect your personal finances, or even give you leverage when negotiating with new suppliers. Once I established business credit, it gave me a sense of freedom and direction about where I want to take my business. It's a tool toward building equity. It's a tool toward expanding your business when used wisely.
We all know that good credit is extremely important in the business environment today. We also understand that being able to be found or creating awareness for your business is incredibly important as well. So in this next video, this last video, we will talk about search engine optimization.
What gets me excited about SEO is the fact that any business, no matter how big or small, can show up on the first page of the search results. There are many different ways that SEO can impact a business beyond just the traditional search results way. What does SEO mean to me is the ability for a marketer to understand how a business or a service is positioned in the consumer's mind. This is really a long-term strategy, and it's one that's about building trust with your customers.
And again, these are some really great videos that provide you with some insight into how Verizon is working to really make a difference for small businesses. I like that last video there, making sure that no small business is left behind. So we're back now, and I sort of want to ask, before we go into LISC and Next Street specifically, tell us a little bit more about some of the other resources that are going to be available at Small Business Digital Ready.
So I can start. Two of the resources that are going to be available are this community component, where you're able to connect with other small businesses depending on your geography, depending on your industry, and depending on your demographic. So you could be a Black woman in Georgia that wants to connect to other Black female businesses, or you could be looking for someone particularly in a certain industry that you can build that relationship with. And this is such a huge component of small business development that we don't necessarily think about, but the network that you have as a small business, in particular in the industries that you're working with, that's where you're going to get those kind of like insider information that only businesses within your field will really know. How to get through licensing issues in a smooth way. So trying to figure out ways to build that community component through this program was really important to us. The other thing that we heard loud and clear from both our partners and the small businesses was the importance of coaching and mentorship. So having these kind of expert conversations, these hackathons, we have a calendar built out for the rest of the year where people and individuals are able to go on and listen into these expert conversations. The topics are varied, so you can literally look at the calendar, see where there's interest for you. You have an opportunity to speak one-on-one with coaches and get mentored and have help and, have any kind of questions answered that you might have. And then one that is hopefully going to be ready to launch, I think in October, will actually be some cash grants. So we're going to be distributing cash grants of $10,000 to businesses who meet certain criteria. They'll have to complete a certain number of modules and/or activities on the site to be eligible. So, all of those funds were made available by Verizon as well to build the excitement, but they also know that businesses, in addition to this knowledge, need the cash as well. So those are the kind of three components that, in addition to the curriculum, that we're excited about.
A couple others that I think business owners will be excited about, and we're excited about. With the coaching, there was a variety of different options. I know Karleen touched on the Ask the Expert events, some of the one-on-one mentoring. There'll also be office hours led by the subject matter experts who provided the content. So some of those faces that you saw in the videos, they'll be providing monthly office hours to people on the platform to answer questions, to dive deeper into some of the learnings from their lesson and things like that. Another, coaching feature, the one-on-one reviews. So these are basically, what I love about these is that the business owner walks away with something. So it's not like they're going to meet with a mentor one-on-one and mentor is going to give them some advice and then send them off on their way. They work on a concrete piece of their business, like a piece of their marketing plan or, a profit and loss statement where, literally they work one-on-one with that mentor to develop a piece of their business that they'll be able to go and implement, right after, they're done, with that session. So I think that's exciting. Another exciting feature is incentives. So obviously the grants are an amazing incentive, but they also have incentives that are unlocked after you take certain courses. So these incentives may be deep discounts on services that business owners may need, like a constant contact or some type of marketing, platform, or they can be like extended trials. So this gives business owners, as they go through learnings, to unlock incentives associated with those learnings and then leverage those technologies and those services for their business to better support them. So Verizon put out all the stops. Everything, I've been in this space for a minute, and almost everything I could think of that I would do to support a small business digitally, Verizon, basically, we did it all. We did it all. So it's a really, really exciting platform. We're not just saying that because we've been involved, working on it. Is really, really an exciting, game-changing platform, in my opinion.
No, it definitely sounds like there's a ton of value for the different businesses that will come through the program. So I'm looking forward to see many success stories come from it. Now I want to shed some light on your respective organizations. And Karleen, if you don't mind, we'll start with LISC. I wonder if you could tell us, besides this program, what other kinds of programs does LISC offer on both a national and a local scale?
Sure. So the exciting thing about what we do at LISC is that we are able to really build out national programs that are implemented and really are driven out by our local, our local offices, but they're able to leverage a lot of those resources, and it's going to look differently depending on which markets that you're in. One of the programs that I oversee is our BDO network, or growing BDO network, the business development organizations, all these acronyms. But we're building out data management tools that many organizations can use and can see the impact of their work. We've built out newsletters and different funding opportunities, capacity building webinars on a monthly basis for organizations that are working directly with small businesses. Over the past 2 years, we've actually deployed over $5 million to 130 plus organizations across the country. So being able to kind of really think about what is the infrastructure that's needed for small businesses to thrive is where our energy has been, in addition to working directly with small businesses. On the capital side, some of the areas that I've seen a lot of flexibility in are the grants, the loans. We're building an equity product right now. We have some local markets that are building out their own small business programs. So depending on where you are, if you are listening in, please get connected to our local offices. I know there are tools and products that can be made available. I will say that over the last 2 years, our national team has deployed over 83 million in relief grants to over 6,300 small businesses. A big chunk of that funding was also through Verizon. But there is also always a way that our local offices try to get connected to the small businesses and connect them to those necessary resources. And then one area that I'm really excited about is that LISC has run financial opportunity centers for quite some time, which really focus on wealth building for individuals and helping them find the right job, safe banking products. And we're using a similar model around financial coaching for small businesses. And we're going to be developing a toolbook and a curriculum to help small businesses, specifically on the personal financing side, And you'll see a lot of that, with the curriculum that we're building out on the Verizon portal, because it's so critical for small businesses.
Now, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how LISC responded to support small business owners in historically underrepresented communities during the pandemic, whether that's local or national.
Yeah, so I mean, the cash grants were huge for LISC. I think a lot of people know LISC as a housing organization. And over the past 2 years, we've really made our mark within the small business space. I think those two areas, really focusing on what do the organizations need and being able to support them financially and keeping their doors open. And then providing those webinars and those newsletters and the actual capacity building. And then on the small business side, making sure that those cash grants were available and connecting those businesses to the right entities. We were able to, I think, did I already say this? We were able to do 83 million in grants on the national side. But then when you look at our actual local offices, a number of our local offices had their own small business grant pools as well. So there were some businesses that were able to work on both our local teams and as well as our national teams. And when you look at kind of that total number, it was $240 million in grants to just small businesses from both the local and national teams that resulted in support in over 16,000 small businesses.
Wow, thank you so much. I too was familiar with LISC, in the housing sector. And so definitely sounds like you all are doing some amazing work. And I'm so glad to hear about it. Now I want to turn our attention over to Next Street. And Jason, I wonder if you could tell us how Next Street leverages partnerships to drive growth for small businesses.
So pretty much over the years, as I stated earlier, we've done countless ecosystem assessments, 25 total. Which means we've worked with hundreds of organizations across the country. So one of the things that we've been doing to support, small businesses is strengthening partnerships and collaboration between organizations so that they can better support small businesses. I think since 2019, we've supported, through our client work and through our partnership strategies, we've supported about 567,000 small businesses indirectly. Since 2019, we've deployed about $15 million to small businesses through our partnerships and through our client work. And the best way to kind of describe how Next Street leverages partnerships to better support small businesses, I'm going to talk about a project I was involved in prior to coming to Next Street when I was at the Chicago Urban League that, Next Street executed in Cook County. So pretty much, there was a couple different, organizations in Cook County, which is like the county that Chicago's in, Chicago Community Trust, a couple other different foundations were looking for ways to support small businesses through the COVID-19 recovery. They brought Next Street on board. Next Street, developed a strategy where they were able to, help, kind of strengthen the ecosystem so that we could better support, small businesses and kind of help them with the COVID-19 recovery. Through leveraging partnerships, we were able to raise a fund that was able to be deployed to small businesses in suburban Cook County because, based on the research that we found and some of the insights, there was plenty of resources available to businesses in the city, but there were limited a number of resources to the businesses in suburban Cook County. So we was able to develop a grant program to provide COVID relief to businesses in suburban Cook County, while also providing the business support organizations that are supporting these small businesses with money to hire additional employees. So I was the director of the Chicago Urban League Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the time. I was able to hire 5 employees through that particular program to build our capacity. And then Next Street did an amazing job of, kind of bringing everybody together, coordinating on best practices, creating some shared programming so that, we could collectively better support small businesses. And, some of the things that we've been doing across the country as far as with these different ecosystem assessments all involve taking that local ecosystem, helping them develop partnerships to better support one another so that they can better deploy, resources and to better support small businesses. So, with this network that we're launching is a platform called NavNet. It's basically the best way I could describe it is LinkedIn for all of these business service organizations. So all of the things that we've been doing on the ground in these different markets with these ecosystem assessments. We're trying to do it at scale with the NavNet platform. So pretty much we launched it to kind of as a test with the Community Navigator application program. We were able to help over 400 organizations apply for the Community Navigator program. We were able to provide, some subject matter expertise and support to them at scale. But the true value came from their peers, right? So we had some answers. We gave some templates. We gave some tools. I'm not going to understate, our importance in some of the things that we did. But like the true value came when these business service organizations start answering each other's questions. They start guiding each other, sharing each other's resources. So we just kind of sat back and was the convener to allow them to better support one another. And now, after the Community Navigator program, we're expanding NavNet just to support business service organizations in general, across all the challenges that they have. So, we want to be able to leverage this platform to be able to facilitate partnerships and to bring in some of our capital partners long-term, some of our, foundational partners who may be looking to support, business service organizations and all of these other different partners, onto the platform just to kind of, help with that, collaboration and engagement at scale. Pretty much that's kind of how we use partnerships to support small businesses, because when these business service organizations are better coordinated, they better support small businesses.
I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit more about, I heard you talk about Cook County. Tell us a little bit more about NextStreet's work to aid small businesses in underserved communities, similar to what you did in Cook County.
Pretty much, we have a lot of projects we're working on. So I probably wouldn't be the best person to even speak on everything that we're working on, but all of our work has an equity lens. So our mission is to support systemically left behind, small businesses. That's Black and brown businesses for the most part, right? So all of the work that we do, we have an equity lens. We're an anti-racist organization. So when we say we're anti-racist, it's not like an initiative. It's the core business strategy. Everything that we're doing, all of the client projects that we take on, all the partnerships we develop, all of the things that we're going to be doing in the future are going to always all have that anti-racism lens. So, our whole purpose and our whole existence is to create a more equitable environment for Black and brown businesses and all other systemically left behind small businesses as well.
Wow. Thank you both so much. I know that there's a lot of ground to cover, and we had a short amount of time to do this, but I want to thank you both for coming and attending and sharing your thoughts in this webinar on behalf of your respective organizations. Now, one of the things I like to do, I like to close out, and I have just one question that I want to ask both of you, and I wonder if you can both give us your final thoughts about what the future looks like for small businesses coming out of the pandemic. And Karleen, we can start with you.
I think so many people are excited to see what's next for the small business community. And when we think about small businesses, especially from our standpoint, I feel like the future is Black. People are extremely unapologetic, and I haven't seen this in this space in a really long time, with not just talking about supporting businesses of color or women-owned businesses, but they're very intentional with their dollars. People say, show me where your, what's the saying? Show me your values, show me your budget, something along those lines. But I think you do see the really intentional focus on supporting businesses of color on the programming side, but also on the capital side. You're seeing a ton of different types of flexible capital coming out. Businesses are not being thrown just debt and loans. People are thinking about equity products, recoverable grants. There's a lot of creativity around financially supporting small businesses. And then, the importance of digital tools and products that can support these businesses. One of the things that we didn't get a chance to mention is that this tool that we're creating with Verizon is actually iterative. So in 6 months, it'll look completely different from what it looks like right now. And part of that will be the information that we're getting from the small businesses. So the future is bright. There's a ton of support for small businesses. They're not in it alone. There's an overwhelming support for this industry. And I'm excited to see, where things go.
So am I. Same question to you, Jason.
I love that. The future is Black. I mean, you got that copyrighted. I mean, no. But no, I agree. Like talking about it from the lens of Black businesses. I remember there was an article I read in the Chicago Tribune where Black business owners were like afraid to let people know that they were a Black owned business because they felt like there was going to be some negative impacts and challenges and things like that, or people weren't going to use their product or services. I think collectively, you know, with kind of some of the things that's happened over the last couple of years, I think everybody's aware of the systemic inequities. Because I remember when I was at the league, I used to do this workshop called the business of inequality, you know, talking about, you know, challenges with Black businesses. And every time I did that, like that presentation in a non-Black environment, they were like, wow, I had no idea. It was such a, like, they really didn't know, right? And, you know, we get some funding, you know, out the blue, you know, as a result of that or things like that. But now I think collectively as a nation, we've had that, wow, right? We had no idea. We didn't know it's this bad. We didn't know it's this, you know, I think collectively as a nation, we've had that. So now I think there's some pride in being a Black business owner. Like I think in the past, we would like kind of try to hide our identity or, you know, try to get non-Black customers or things like that. Some of the things that, you know, come from a systemic system that makes you ashamed of, you know, having a particular color of skin. I think now there's some opportunity for us to kind of get from underneath a lot of that. And I think there's some allies that's come, you know, corporations have responded, foundations have responded, governments have responded to really try to support Black businesses. And I'm just going to keep it honest in this regards. I think one of the challenges that kind of held Black businesses back in some regards is when people used to talk about, like, you know, businesses, they used to lump Black businesses in with just other minority owned businesses. But when you look at all of the statistics as far as the inequities, Black businesses were like the challenges that, you know, minority businesses face, Black businesses face them 10 times fold. Like, for example, average Black business, you know, annual gross receipts according to US Census is $58,000. It's $143,000 for a Latinx business, which still is terrible compared to $543,000 for a white-owned business, but $58,000 for a Black-owned business, right? You know, 13% of the population, but half of the all business revenue, you know, according to US Census, you know, survey of, you know, business owners and self-employed persons. So like, I think now, like that, you know, some of the inequities have, you know, the light shined on them. I think it's going to be an amazing opportunity for Black businesses to thrive, to grow, and to prosper moving forward.
Wow, the future is Black. And you guys just really, you know, shine a light on all of our community, you shine a light on our businesses and your organizations. And on behalf of our president, Ron Busby, on behalf of our partner, Verizon, I want to thank you both for being here and giving us such amazing input and amazing wisdom on the programs that you're working on. So with that, we're going to close out. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you all for attending. And I want to make sure that you all come back and visit us at the USBC. Thank you.